All right. Now.
Mildred Berkholder's brother.
Oh, what?
I haven't been identified as her brother for 30 years. How do you know Mildred?
We rented it for a year from
The little stone house on
It was really
Little
good.
Drive.
I haven't like shared the link.
I remember in 1968, when I took a check for $50,000 to buy the farm. And the brothel. And in this really dusty accent, well, do you want the bomb? Do you want the bomb? Yeah.
I'm sending it.
Mildred was like the second.
Hi,
She was
Brooke.
the oldest and I was the third from the
Hello.
youngest. Mateti.
Hi. Yes. Yeah. So
She did.
it's not like inside. It's
I certainly
either there's a visitor lot and there's the street parking, or yeah. So if you're here, you can go to like there's like 7th Street parking. Like there's a little visitor parking lot. Yeah, and then you'll have to like pick up the phone to get in. So. All right. Okay then. Yeah. Talk to you later. All right. Now.
Do you want to see Joshua's horrible language?
What?
Do you want to see Joshua's horrible language?
Daddy, are you a YouTube person?
Am I a YouTube person?
Yeah, are you a YouTuber?
I am not.
Why? But you have a YouTube channel.
Yeah. We hear everything from like this mic here.
I can.
YouTube stream. You're on YouTube.
Wait, who?
This is the frog one. I'm sure that don't even look.
Henry.
Me and Anna have got. These are too big.
This big and
These are not as big as my shoes. My feet are a lot.
Don't stress out about it. Bathroom.
We accidentally got two.
If you're in the service here.
oh yeah. See, so this is my dad. This is me. Then I have this. Then I have this. Yeah. You see.
So you're in the.
everyone. We're at time, but we're going to wait just a little bit longer. There's going to be some more residents from my mom's floor that are going to actually come up here. So just bear with us. Give us like 5 more minutes or so. Also, it's like really hard to find this place. Like, where is this room from the entrances? I thought maybe there'd be some more signage up, but it's, if you saw the, like, you know, memorial service signs, then thank you, Rachel, for making those signs.
Should we pass it around? Is that the we are ready to start now.
All right, I think we can get started. We did my mom's memorial service in Ohio in November, early November, and it was good to do it there because my mom lived for most of her life in Dayton, Ohio. And I'm going to go through her whole life story. Let me see. Is this better? Can you hear me better? Okay, sorry about that. I'm the audio person that should actually make sure that the audio levels are better, but I don't do that my own self. So I'm really glad that we could do a Pennsylvania service, because then in my mom's later years, she lived with us in Pennsylvania, and this is where we've had a new phase of friends and interactions. And then after 2019, she did live here at Elm Terrace, and she's made many connections with residents here. And I'm glad that one of the main motivations to have the memorial service in Elm Terrace is so that some of those residents could be here. And so I'm really happy to have the residents here, Carol, Pat, and they're back there. And we would have had more, but it's a tough reality that even since my mom passed, one of her good friends that was here in the facility has also passed. So in that 2-month span, one of her good friends passed, and so that was someone we got to know over the years of visiting. So it's good to see your faces from different parts of our life, and we are just happy that you're here. And we have some of my family, some of my mom's relatives also here from New Jersey, and so it's good. Thank you for driving all this way. Thank you for figuring out parking, figuring out how to get in here, and reading the handwritten signs to get here. I appreciate that. Thank you for not complaining that you didn't get to see the slideshow that I prepared because of technical difficulties, but I had to point that out. So anyway. So now I think our next step in the service requires the usher to come over, Asha and Jaya. Also, if you have your lyric sheets, we're going to be singing How Great Thou Art, but come in
The second time.
the second.
No, we're singing this for the first two.
You're
to share a scripture with you all from Psalms 121. Actually, Asha's going to read it. But I wanted to just share that when I lived with Nima, or Mom, I didn't really know her. I knew her son from Penn State, and I lived with her for 9 months while I was completing an internship. And so I quickly got to know her very closely, and I just remember witnessing her go to the scripture for comfort, for encouragement. When she didn't know what to pray, we would read the Psalms. And so we're going to share 2 Psalms during the service, and the first one is one that I also connected a lot with, and it's a praise song. And so when I think about her faith and her life, it encourages me to find comfort and find strength in the words of the scriptures.
I lift my eyes up to the mountains. Where does my help come from? My help comes from the Lord, the maker of heaven and earth. He will not let your foot slip. He who watches over you will not slumber.
I think Kieran is going to come and share a little bit more about his mom.
Thanks, Asha and Jaya. Thanks, Rachel. One thing sorry. That's something that I wish my mom could have seen and kind of was cognizant of. Oh, that's my first grandkid and my second one playing cello and singing. It's something that I wish she could have seen. I don't know if everyone knows my mom's kind of story, so I'm going to just go ahead and tell that. So my mom is the youngest of 13 kids, and she grew up in a small town, Mardpally, in Hyderabad, India. So Jay wants me to say that, the 13-year gap, the eldest daughter, the firstborn from my grandma, was 21 years older than my mom. And that was, her name was Krishnaveni, and Krishnaveni's grandson is in the back, and he's going to be speaking later. And they recently underwent the task of making a family tree, and it is very wide. It is very, very far-reaching. So my mom was in a house, probably no bigger than half of this room, but you sleep, you roll out your mats, and you sleep kind of head to toe. You live. And my mom was very happy. They were a very happy family, but they didn't have much. They had gone through hard times. They were previously had a good business, and that business operation fell through. But so this family of 13. But then if I do my counting, I think it was actually only 11, and there was 2 that had passed early. Minor detail, not important. But my mom goes from this kind of bustling house of energy and laughter. My mom would be the one to bring comic relief to the family. She was the youngest. After somebody would visit the family, they would leave, and then my uncles would say, Poornima, come. And then she would proceed to do whatever impression of the person. She basically made fun of people, which I don't think is very honorable, but she would do a good job of it at least. And I think I see that carried over from me like trying to get laughs with an Indian accent, like who would do that? And then I think Jaya is the comic relief of our family. So I'd like to see that passing down. So my dad lived in a neighborhood that was like an hour away from Hyderabad or so. And my mom and her brother and her mom lived up there for a time. And so my dad was like the neighborhood boy. And my cousin tells stories about him. Do you want me to tell the story? No. My cousin knew my dad before my parents married. But anyway, so it was essentially the wish of my grandmas that they were to be married. It wasn't quite an arranged marriage. It was considered a quote-unquote love marriage, according to Indian standards. Imagine that, marrying for love, you know. But it was an odd thing. Oh, it's a love marriage, okay. But, yeah, don't laugh at that. So, the problem was my dad was kind of a terror. He would make his own mom kind of scared because of how he had a temper. And he studied in the US, and they were communicating via letter. And it turns out that, you know, my mom would get these letters and be writing responses, but it was actually my mom's sister that was actually writing these letters or providing a lot of help. And so I don't know if there's just a confusion about who my mom really was or what the real relationship was, but fast forward, they get married, and my mom goes from this big house to being alone with my dad in Australia. And so she's in this new land, and they live in Australia for a number of years. My brother is born in Australia. He was an Australian citizen. And that's 1979. My dad, a computer science professor, travels to Washington State to get into the US, and then cross-country trip to Case Western in Cleveland, Ohio. And Cleveland, Ohio is where I was born in 1983, Cleveland, Indian. And thank you. And throughout that time, my dad, you know, struggled with his professional career and, you know, wound up, he would say, kind of settled at Wright State after he couldn't get tenure at Case Western. And all these things made for like a troubled life at home. And my mom had to endure quite a bit. And in the pictures, you can see shifts in her face when she was in India and maybe was carefree, and then added responsibility of becoming a wife, alone in a foreign land. She didn't speak the language. She constantly felt like she didn't have the education that she needed or the knowledge that she needed. And I think that was reinforced by my dad. But here she is now having to take care of 2 kids in a foreign land, moving from Cleveland, Ohio to Southwest Ohio, where there were actually a lot of Indians in Cleveland, enough to have like a Telugu association, which is my mom's language. And in Dayton, you know, there's very few Indians. Okay, I take that back. Actually, like half of our valedictorians were Indian. There were a lot of Indians, but still, there wasn't a good community of Indians there until things got much worse at home, and then finally, through the strength of like our neighbor, my mom decided to split from my dad, which was a big undertaking in an Indian culture. That's, you essentially are supposed to have very cold and unhappy marriages until the end. Should I not go there? Okay, don't go there. All right. Anyway, point is, the divorce was very rough on both my brother and I, and we kind of became rebellious kids. Through the divorce, and through our neighbor, my mom started working at a church, in a church nursery, and she started, I didn't make mention of this, but she was a very devout Hindu. And as she started working in the nursery, and she started listening to messages, and she started doing this comparison, she became like a born-again believer, like very intense, always talking about Jesus. And we were kids that, we followed my mom in whatever, religion that she had professed, but now this is kind of overboard. We're like, Mom, can you just be like a normal Christian and quit talking about Jesus? But we got into trouble, and so she was the type of mom that would be praying for us all the time, and she would be sleeping on the couch, waiting for us to come home because we were out, and nervous whether or not we would, get into more serious trouble. So we survived high school, and we always did well in school because we're Indian, and we managed, to go through college. And my brother had a job, in the financial world, and I was doing graduate school at Penn State. And the second semester at Penn State, I get a call, and my brother had died drinking and driving. And so that was a big, that was the first huge turning point of my life. And my mom, I know what it was like to have like my best friend taken from me, my brother, but I don't know what it's like to have my firstborn son taken from me. And I think that my mom never truly recovered from that, and that was the start to the patterns in my mom's mind that I am a doctor, but not that kind of doctor, but thinking about Alzheimer's and how the brain works, things like that kind of trauma just stick with you. So I think about the years that I've spent at Penn State, and my mom was alone for those years, and I think about that a lot, and fight regret about that. It was a huge blessing in like 2008, 2009, when there was an Indian girl that was my brother's age that worked in Mason, Cincinnati area, and lived with my mom, and then another girl who was my age that was working at Miami Valley Hospital during her internship, and she also lived with my mom. So it was like my mom, for a brief period of time, had two daughters that were living in her house, and she was so happy. And I would come back and visit, and it was like just a new, rejuvenated family. And I really cherished those moments, and then I married the one other one. So that was good. It was a great joy to see my mom as Nanama, which is the Indian word for grandma, and it's very specific. Nana means dad, and then Amma means mom, so it's like dad mom. And if it was Rachel's mom, would be Mama, mom. So in 2013, Asha was born, and my mom had started not being able to do things on her computer at work. She started messing up. She started getting lost driving. She accidentally went forward into a garage door instead of reversing. And we started making moves to get her closer to us where we were living in Bloomington, Indiana. And then her Alzheimer's and her dementia was kind of progressing. And so in 2015, actually soon after Jay was born, Jay, that's just a picture. she moved in with us. And a number of years after that, we moved to Pennsylvania. And, I see people from the farmhouse here, Julie, Brent, and we cherished the year that we lived in that farmhouse. It was just a great experience. And there's one story, because my mom was forgetful, but she was very pleasant. And she would take great joy in like making flower arrangements and things like that. And Julie has a number of flowers on the farm at that time. And there was one time when she was picking flowers in a backyard, and Rachel will tell the story better, but she ended up wandering a number of blocks. She didn't know how to get back to the farm. And she was in somebody's backyard, and they called the police, not like she's going to steal something, but like, there's this lady in the backyard, like, wandering around, and I think she needs help. So a police officer picks her up, and, I mean, she can't really describe where she needed to go. But the cop knew, like a farm barn, and then eventually got her back home. But that was just another wake-up call, like, oh man, this is where she needs like constant monitoring. And the toughest thing to happen was in the evenings, she would have like sundowning, and she would suddenly just cry and be very emotional. And we weren't equipped, and in hindsight, I don't know, we could have done many things, but in 2019, she moved over here to memory care upstairs. And she was with it enough. Like, she would color, she would talk with people, she was very much aware. And we would visit, and it'd be great. The kids would make themselves at home, be running around, and it was a good experience. And in those years, now it's been, 5 years, we've made, many visits, and we got to know many of the residents. Bert is actually over there, and my mom and Bert were really good friends in memory care, and they would be in each other's rooms and talking, inadvertently sharing each other's clothes, and it was a good place. And then 2020, something happened. What happened in 2020? COVID happened. And we went through that struggle where we couldn't visit for a number of months. And finally, when things opened up, we had to visit with a plastic barrier, and we couldn't hug or shake hands, which was the real, No, Asha wants me to mention that we did a drive-through visit. Early in the COVID days, they got brought out, and we would literally stick our kids, we stuck Noah out the sunroof to say hi to Nana, and we were sticking out the windows like, hey! And that was like the best we could do. So eventually things got opened up again, and I think in that time, my mom's language was struggling already, but at that time she wasn't able to speak English much anymore, and she had reverted to speaking Telugu. And even that Telugu language was very sparse. So that, brings us to almost where we're at today, because throughout that time, we had continued to see her decline, but she would still light up when she saw us. We were so happy when we could hug again, and that was like our language together, is hugging and playing peekaboo with Noah, and playing with the kids, and just having time together in her room or in the common spaces when we made our visits. So I think I just took you through 73 years of history, and I think for me, I'm easily distracted to not face the kind of emotions that I have to deal with for my mom. But I think in time I'll be able to better communicate it. But we've said, someone said, this is called the long goodbye. When you have Alzheimer's and dementia, is, you know, in some ways I've said goodbye already, but now this is the final goodbye. And so the reality of death has been imprinted on me. I was able to spend her last days. I was able to spend. I took like many days, and I basically like camped out. I didn't sleep here, but I spent many hours with her, and I was able to see her in her final moments. And the reality of death, the former priorities that I may have had about, I don't know, furthering my career, spending more time at work, maybe I should be making log viewer better. Is it worth spending that time doing that, or is it worth spending time being in the present with your family, having dinner together, having routines? And it made me think of like, who's going to be by your bedside when you are in your final moments? And so it's just a reality check, I think. So yeah, so that's what I wanted to share. And now Rachel and I are going to lead you all in a song. In your lyric sheets, you should see My Jesus, I Love Thee. This is a song that we used to sing, we still do, to the girls when they went to bed.
For thee all the follies
turn my wailing into dancing. You remove my sackcloth and clothe me with joy, that my heart may sing your praises and not be silent. Lord my God, I will praise you forever.
So now I'd like to invite Srinivas Aswarapu, who would be, oh my goodness, my mom's niece's eldest son. Does that make second cousin once removed? First cousin once removed. Oh wait, what?
Poornima was my grandaunt, even though she's just a few years older than me. Good morning, guys. So, just wanted to share a few memories about Poornima. So, my first recollection of her was when I was a little older than a toddler, when I used to accompany my grandma to go meet her mom. And that's where I first used to meet Poornima, who was like a teenager. And she used to take time out to show me around the neighborhood and give me some treats in the kitchen and tell some stories from mythologies and all that. So, we used to meet maybe a couple of times a year in those days. And eventually I remember, I think in 1976, I attended her marriage in the same place in Hyderabad. And after that she moved to Australia, and then we more or less lost touch. Till I think it was 1984 or 85, she visited India along with her two kids, Kiran and Teja. And we did have some interaction in those days. And again, when I came to this country in 94, 95, that's when we reconnected again. And over the years, met her multiple times in Cleveland, in Dayton, Ohio, and then in Pennsylvania. And all along, the most cherishing memories of her are her kindness and her open-heartedness to include you in whatever she's doing, and her awesome cooking. And in the last few years, it was really sad seeing her decline with her memory issues. And we visited her a couple of times in this place. But eventually, I think after COVID, it was almost difficult to interact, and then finally she passed away. So, she was a good person who took care of her family and was very cordial and welcoming to everybody in the extended family. That's basically my memories of her. Thank you.
Thank you, Srinivas. Now we're going to sing another song. And so turn in your bulletin to Amazing Grace.
Was
right, so now we're just gonna open it up for a time for sharing. If anyone has a memory or a story or anything to say about my mom. We can also travel to you. This is a wireless mic. So if you want to raise your hand, we can come to you, or you can come up. You want to? I'll leave this one here and I'm going to come back.
I'll just start because I feel like two things that I think should be highlighted, and thank you, Sunivas, for mentioning her cooking. Cooking was her delight. Cooking was her way of showing her expertise. I don't think that she felt intimidated, or she knew that she could do a good thing when she cooked, and that was her joy. And also to see people eating her cooking was just her way of having fun, enjoying life, caring for people. And so that will always stick out to me as part of her, as well as talking to anyone that she met, any place, anytime. You also highlighted that, Srinivas, and I thank you for that, because it would be sad if we didn't just mention how good she was at just relating to anybody in any circumstance. Something that I am not great at. I feel a lot of awkwardness. I don't think she really cared. She just like, these are people, I'm a person, I can relate to you. And so even times when I was just like, oh mom, let's just keep going, please stop, don't stop and talk. She wanted to make connection with people and wanted to find out their stories, know who they were. And so I think about that and what a blessing it is to have someone who just, that's all they want to do is connect with others. And it's really encouraging to me. And I know Kieran has inherited that a lot. And so I hope that my kids inherit that from their grandma, from their nanama, from their dad. Those qualities are things to cherish a lot. So.
I'm going to tell a story. So when I put my kids to bed, Jay is typically like, Daddy, can you tell me a story? And so a lot of these stories have come like, you have to dig. You're like, oh yeah, it is in there. What's the park right next to Souderton Mennonite Church? Chestnut Street? We were there, and there was a Mexican family that was playing there, and my mom, I don't think she knew that they were Mexican. But she goes over there, and she's thinking that she starts speaking like Telugu and Hindi to them, trying to, oh, you're Indian, I'm going to connect with you because you're Indian. And then we had to be like, Mom, they're not Indian. But she really wants to connect with people, and she doesn't really care. She has no filter anyway. So. I didn't talk about Elder Bierman, but she worked at a department store at the mall in Beaver Creek. And she was actually really good, because when you buy a bunch of things, they want you to sign up for the credit card, and you get like 10% off or whatever. And then if you get somebody to sign up, you get like $3 or $4 as like incentive. And my mom was getting thousands of dollars from instant credit applications, and she was like light years ahead of the next person, because other people are like, they hear no and they're like, okay. But my mom hears no and she's like, oh, but you could save $35. You could buy 7 Chipotle burritos. Like, she would keep going. And of course, I didn't mention her cooking. What in the world? So my friends and I grew up not wanting to eat any Indian food. So the food that I would eat would be rice and sour cream and sugar. And puri and mango pulp. These are all really good things, though, by the way. And then I grew up, like, I don't know, when I was like 16, I started eating Indian food because I was just hungry and growing. And my mom, so my friends and I would go over to my mom's house, my house, and as an Indian cook, you have to be like basically at the stove making food and delivering the food to you know, your customers. And so my friends and I would sit there and eat like 12, 15, 20 puris and chicken curry. My mom would make a chicken and mushroom curry that I don't think other Indians made because we just like mushrooms. So chicken and mushroom curry, potato curry, you know, then yeah, everything. And we would pound a lot of food. We would eat like, and for our wedding, for the rehearsal dinner, she made, you know, like more than 40 pounds of chicken and all the desserts. And she could have had, I think about that, like she could have had like a catering business with a manager. She needed a manager.
I wasn't planning to speak, and both Rachel and Kieran took the words out of my mouth for all of the memories and the things that I would want to say. So I'm one of Kieran's best friends from childhood, and I got to be a part of the high school and junior high tribe that would invade Mateti's house and just consume endless amounts of Indian food that she would make for us. And when you were first sharing the history of your mother and how when you guys moved to the Dayton area that there really wasn't a big Indian community, he's not wrong. It's like a very non-diverse community. So Kieran was like our token diverse friend, and we learned all about different cultures through him and his mom. At the time, being in middle school and high school, I didn't really recognize like the sacrifices that she made for her two sons, being a single Indian mom. I mean, I'm a mother now, and I can look back now and just, it's mind-blowing, like her strength and how she raised two such incredible humans against all of the odds and the circumstances that she was put in. She continued to thrive with kindness and generosity. And in high school, she did always worry about every single one of us. We pushed our limits. But Kieran's house was always like our safe space. We were always welcome. The door was always open. If we needed to stay at your house, we stayed. And she cooked. She taught us all how to cook Indian food. None of us probably had any, I'd probably never eaten Indian food before I met your mom. And I was gonna tell the story about her working at the department store too, that every time I went to the mall, I made sure to go see her because she just had the brightest and warmest smile that I can't step foot in this mall at Fairfield Commons without going to see your mom. And she'd always come out, give me a hug, and show me things. Do you want to look at it? What are you shopping for? You know, she was a great, warm sales lady. And again, just the strength that she had to go through everything that she has, losing Tage, you know, and all the conversations that we've had in her decline, and you opening up to me about regrets that you've had over the last however many years, what you could have done or should have done differently. Everything you've done up to this point has been exactly what your mom would have wanted. When you met Rachel and you told me, you came to my house and you said, I met the girl I'm gonna marry, and she's been living with my mom, and you know, you have these beautiful children, you know, that you've raised in faith, and everything that you've done, you've gone to school, you're so successful, you have a beautiful, loving family. You took care of her, you moved her into your home, you gave back to her everything that she gave to you. And in her final days, you were by her side, and she knew that. I told you as we talked when you were in these moments, I happen to work in a facility like this, so I'm very scripted in end-of-life care. And I just kept saying, she knows you're there, she hears everything you're doing, and you were there in all of the moments that mattered, and she got to see the most successful portion of your life, marrying and having a family. And I think that is all she ever wanted, was for her children to be happy, for people around her to be happy. She had a gift. You couldn't be around her and not feel joy, warmth, safety. She just made you feel very safe and welcome. And all of those characteristics and all of those traits are you to a T. And my most favorite part of your story was when you said that your mom used to do impressions. And I didn't know that, but Kieran is our impression guy. Not just the Indian accent, but in our friend group, which, you know, we've been doing these trips every summer together just to stay connected, and we live to just surround ourselves around you and your impressions and your stories, and you make us just die laughing. And that is clearly a trait you inherited from your mom. So your impressions, your kind, giving heart, your stability for your family, your warmth, everything that you encompass is because of her. And all of these people here are celebrating her life, and we get to see her live on through you. So she was a wonderful, wonderful woman, and you are an incredibly wonderful man because of her.
Thanks, Julie. Now, no one is going to want to say anything, because who's going to top all that? We're Rachel's parents, and we would go to Penn State to visit her, and got to know that she was part of a Christian student group, and Kieran was part of that. I don't know if we had much interchange or not. Then she goes to Ohio for her internship, and her first boarding experience with somebody out there didn't go very good, and so she was encouraged to check out at Kieran's mother's place, and that went much better. We went out to visit, and we experienced exactly what a lot of you folks have been saying. She made us feel so welcome. We stayed there, we visited. She just accommodated us so well. And we discovered that I think Kieran went to visit his mom a whole lot more than what he used to when Rachel was living there. And so, yeah. Did you tell your friends that you were marrying this girl before you asked permission?
I did ask permission.
He did. He drove by himself all the way from Penn State to Lancaster County with Rachel not knowing, and asked permission, and we were happy to say yes. And we have been enjoying and cherishing them and their family so much ever since.
Good morning, all. My name is Samantha Talatodi. Me and Nima had a special things because me and her talk the same language, Telugu. And when they started coming to Plains, and first visit, Rachel and Kiran and kids came and Nima came. I told Rachel and Kiran not to go any other church, come to Plains. And Nima, seeing me, she got very highlighted because I speak her language. And Nima she's like my mom, but she reflected me as a friend, and she used to talk the language and talk about stuff, challenges, which I didn't know much. And later I know her, and when she moved to this facility, it was very hard for me, and because I know she was declining, and Rachel was very good daughter-in-law, and she always used to say, she's not my daughter-in-law, don't say that, she's my daughter. Yes, Nima, I know she's your daughter. And so that's how she is, and I really learned her love, how she reflected to people. And when she was moved to one of the secure unit, my heart felt very bad. That day only I came from India. Then I said, no, I have to go. But when she saw me there, she started eating that day. And then I told the nurses there to put some songs of Indian songs. And they put that, and they made her happy. And she fell back. And then as COVID came and everybody was struggling, it was hard for me to come and visit. Then later, before she passed away, I came and met her. As we know, when we are dying, even in a coma, I work for the seniors too. We know the presence of people will be there with them when we go there. So I prayed my language Telugu for her. I was so pleased that Kiran was there with me that day. And then later I prayed in Telugu. Then after next day she passed away. I felt so comforted myself, but I felt sad losing her in this world. But she has a good personality of love, which all you all know. And she is a very good mother and grandmother too. Because one day when I was sitting beside her in the church, she forgot to spell Asha. And she broke out. Then I consoled her, don't worry, it's okay. Sometimes we forget the words. And because she loved Asha and Jaya, and Noah was not born that time. So, but I have a good memories of her, and she is a loving, great lady in this world. One of them. Thank you.
I can only share a very short anecdote. I did not know Nima very well. I met her only once. A few of us here had the pleasure of working with Kieran for several years at JVT on that log viewer thing that you mentioned. We were in a group called R&D, and we would have monthly occurrences where the group of us would go together, would go out to lunch and participate in some sort of activity. Usually anyone would pick something like Applebee's and music trivia, or telling jokes, something like that. Kieran's idea of a lunch and activity was to go to their home and to have a home-cooked meal. So Kieran and Rachel and Nima invited us into their home, and they prepared for us a feast of homemade Indian food. I don't really remember interacting with Nima too much, but she was there, she was cooking, she was smiling, and she was clearly enjoying everybody's presence, and she was happy to be hosting strangers at that time. So it sounds like there's a full life of that. I'm happy to be part of it.
I can make chicken curry, and I know like some of the tricks that she did. You gotta roast the spices, dry roast, and then you grind it. But I'm not gonna be able to recreate that. I'll just have to have a lot of iterations. And I'm even worse with the puri and the chapati. Maybe you can make that.
I'm Ruth Parrish-Souter, and I know Rachel and Kieran from time at Penn State. And I remember we were living together, and Nima came to visit one time and was making dosas for us and teaching us how to make them. And they were so delicious, as you can imagine. But also I mostly remember from that visit that there would be times when she would laugh so hard that it would become totally silent. Like it would start getting higher and higher and higher, and then just no sound. And yeah, the joy, yeah, it was just a joy to be around her. And then it was also really fun. One time they all came to visit us when we were living in Lancaster. And I think Anna was just a baby, and just seeing her light up around a baby, even as parts of life were getting more difficult for her, being around a new little baby, and how calm and delighted Anna was as a newborn to be with her, and how safe she felt. It's beautiful.
The other thing I didn't mention was that she was so good around kids. She had a babysitting business, and so when I was like younger than Jaya, there were just babies all around. And so that meant I started playing with babies when I was like that. Yeah, and you know, we got to know many families that way, and still are in contact, where these kids remember me because I was babysitting them, but my mom was babysitting them before that. And then I also learned that some people aren't very good with kids. So I actually thought every grandma was like good with kids and automatically, but nope, it's not like that. Okay, story 1991. The year was 1991. No, my parents were split up. It was me, my brother, and my mom. And we would actually have, we would listen to Z93. So we listened to a lot of radio, and so there's certain songs that like trigger me going back there, like Bryan Adams, Everything I Do for You. Anyway, the point of that was that we would go to grocery stores and listen to the radio, and then we went to Lafino's. Lafino's had a raffle. You know, you win a car, okay, fine. Put your name in. My mom won a car. We won a 1991 Ford Escort. It was stick shift. My mom didn't know how to drive stick. And it had automatic seatbelts. So like you get in the car and it goes zzz. There was probably some like drastic accident why they don't make those anymore. But we won the car, and then my dad, you know, we were separated but not divorced quite yet, and my dad was mad. Because when you win a car, you actually have to pay the taxes on that car. So he's like, why do we need a car? We already have a car. We have two Dodge Omnis. We had a red one and a white Dodge Omni. You remember those? Yeah. Why do you need a different car? And it would not start. It was like a terrible car, the Dodge Omni. But then the Ford Escort, the other problem was that the only person that was going to be able to teach my mom how to drive stick was my dad. And so, two people that want nothing to do with each other. And it was just the most stressful time for my mom to learn how to drive stick, but she did it, of course. She learned how to drive stick. And then every hill, we were just like, please don't stall, please don't stall. Because you know, if you're driving a stick and you are on a hill and you put it in first, you have your clutch, and that's perfect timing, you got to get that sticking point, and otherwise you're going backwards, and then you rear end yourself. Yeah. And my mom didn't know this, but when I was 14, I drove that car from Spicer Park to, actually here's what happened was, my brother had driven it there, and then they were playing at Spicer Park, Zipline Park.
Yes.
And we literally lived 2 blocks away. My brother's like, all right, drive it over. And then I'm like, yeah, I could do that because I'm cool, I'm 14. And then I couldn't even start it because I wasn't pressing the clutch in. And so I was like failing miserably, and then my brother started saying words I shouldn't say here at me, and then I walked home. I didn't actually end up driving that, but my dad would let me shift gears as we drove. So he'd be like, okay, now, and then he'd press the clutch, and then I'd put it in the second. What did I miss about my mom's life? You know, maybe when she was here, she was helping people. She was always a helper. And so she would always want to talk with the other residents and make sure they're okay, because she was on her feet up until early this year. She was always walking on her feet. The other problem, though, is like if there was some napkin on the ground or some piece of trash on the ground, she always wanted to pick it up. And even when her feet didn't work as well, she would want to do that. And I wonder if that was maybe the precursor to some of her falls. Her trying to do good and clean up. So. All right, I think we can continue to share as we go on, but I'd like to invite Pastor Mike over and share a quick word and then benediction. And then I'm going to do a sending song after that in the tradition of Elm Terrace.
Thank you, Kieran, and thank you, all of you, for sharing your memories of Nima, helping us to understand her life and her journey a bit better. As I thought of today's service and sharing a few reflections, I thought of some of the larger themes of the Bible that we think of during these times. And if there was a focus for my comments this morning, it would be from 1 Corinthians 13, for now we know in part, for now we know only in part. Because when it comes to grief and loss, we turn to the scriptures for strength and comfort and for the perspective of eternity. But we find some of the larger themes the Bible reflected here in Nima's life, I think especially, and that is this whole theme of God's love for us, that God loves us no matter what. That's a central theme of the Bible, that nothing can separate us from God's love. Romans 8 reminds us of those lofty words. Neither death nor tragedies nor dementia can separate us from God's love. So that is the Bible tells us grand story of God's love, and yet a rather obvious second theme is that we aren't like God in any way. We are different from God. We aren't always loving like God. Our bodies aren't everlasting like God's. We don't understand everything that happens in our lives. Our lives are a mystery. As 1 Corinthians 13 says, this love chapter, now we know in part, we see through a glass darkly. We don't understand it all. An untimely death at 73 and dementia are just a few of those things we don't quite understand. When we walk through valleys, when we suffer, we don't understand even how God's love is with us. How is God with us when our prayers aren't answered? Did God forget about us? Does God no longer care? That's kind of a major theme of the Bible as well, that we struggle in our finitude to figure out how God is with us. And maybe related to that, a kind of third theme is that the Bible gives voice to that struggle, gives voice to our pain, to our questions. A third of the Psalms are Psalms of lament. How long, O Lord? Why are you so far from me, O Lord? Come quickly and save me. Why do the righteous suffer? Jesus praying for this cup of suffering to be taken away in the garden. We don't want to suffer. And so while the Bible speaks about God's nearness, God's love, that's always with us, that nothing can separate us, the Bible also speaks about God's absence as well, and gives voice to that sub-theme. And as I think back on Nima's journey, especially your pilgrimage, Kieran, and we see those two competing themes of God's loving presence and the mystery of God's absence rather clearly, part of your journey with your mom. How was God with you all along? A first-generation immigrant from India living in a foreign land, as you said, a mostly white community and culture. I'm sure there had to be times of loneliness and discouragement along the way. And then the divorce, 2 young boys at home, struggling, working hard as a single parent. Your older brother, Kieran, taken away tragically in a car accident. In a sudden crash was very difficult, I'm sure, for your mom and for you. And while I'm sure there were also bright spots along the way, there was Christian community around you, there was friends, there were neighbors, there were mentors. But life had to be hard, and I'm sure if you didn't know it, your mom had to be asking some questions about God's loving presence. And then at some later point, 7 years ago or so, your mom moved with you here to another new community in eastern Pennsylvania, another adjustment, and it was even before that your mom was developing these signs of dementia and Alzheimer's, and then ending up here in Elm Terrace, where she was well cared for. But each of these earthly changes and losses are cause for weeping and asking that unanswerable question, why? Why do all these bad things happen and happen to one person? And what is the meaning of all this? Life wasn't always easy for Nima, I'm sure, living through this mystery, looking at the world through a dark piece of glass. And yet she lived, as 1 Corinthians 13 goes on to affirm, faith, hope, and love. Faith, hope, and love, which is how we all kind of are called to live through the darker sides of life. As I recall the years that Nima would come to church, I think she smiled the entire time she was at church. She smiled when she struggled to talk to us in English. She smiled when she talked to her friends. She especially smiled when she saw Jaya and Asha. And she really smiled when Sumata would talk Telugu to Nima. And I've been impressed with you, Kieran and Rachel, for making room in your home when you first moved in the area for your mom to move in with you. A true reflection of your mother's love and hospitality, and I'm sure it was crowded and it wasn't always easy. And do you remember those times, Jaya, of Grandma living with you? You don't, but Asha remembers a little bit, yeah, of Nanama living with you. Remember her. Remember those times, Asha and Jaya and Noah, if you can. Remember and take with you from this place her faith, her trust, her ability to walk with God into the midst of the unknown, with the questions that she lived with. Walk by faith, even when not everything goes your way, even when your prayers don't always get answered. We're called to walk by faith, to walk with a sense of hope and anticipation that tomorrow would be better maybe than today, that there's a longer view of life that stretches out beyond the walls of this world. But above all, take with you her love, her hospitality, her warmth, her spirit, the way she imbibed God's love and shared that love with her friends and neighbors and her family and others with her cooking. Because, friends, we know there's times in our lives where we don't have answers. We walk into the mystery. We see through the glass darkly. We ask the question, why? But But we are called then to continue to walk by faith, to live with hope, and to share that love. Love itself is the greatest of these, 1 Corinthians says. The best message we have as God's people is that God is love. God continues to be love. In the midst of all the mystery and the unanswered questions, God is love. And share that love as Nima did to those around you with a smile. Let's pray. Oh God, we give you thanks this morning for your grace and your love that came into our world and to our lives through Nima. We thank you so much for the blessings that she brought to her family, to her children, to Kieran and Rachel and their children, Asha and Jaya and Noah, to the friends, to the community that surrounds us this day. We thank you for her love that radiated to each one of us. Oh God, we pray for special comfort and healing for this family, Kieran and Rachel and Asha and Jay and Noah, that they may feel your presence and your love as they remember the good times, the memories from the past. Surround us all with your compassion and love as we leave this place. May we too be more committed to each other, more devoted to walking with you, that we may walk with faith into the darkness. We may live with hope into the light of tomorrow. We may share love to our neighbors and friends and all who we talk with. And that surely one day we too will dwell in your house, the house of the Lord, forever. Amen. Dear Rachel, may God bless you and keep you and be gracious to you and give you peace.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for coming, for sharing. And one thing that we have a little tradition here at when we come and visit at Elm Terrace. And don't say this song? Why? They'll figure it out. Maybe you've heard it before. It's definitely not one you would sing at church. Sorry. It was 16 degrees this morning. All right, come on, get with it. All right, I'm doing it. So, if you know this song, great, sing along. If you don't, try it too. But this is something we would do. We'd come into the common room, we'd sing songs. The girls would do Irish dance. We would basically put on a little show. And it brought me a lot of joy to see that actually come into fruition. And my mom, if she knew it or not, but she I think, enjoyed it. West Virginia, Mountain Mama, take me home, country road. All my memories gather round her, miner's lady, stranger to blue water, dark and dusty, painted on the sky, misty taste of moonshine, teardrop in my eye, country roads, take me home to the place I belong, West Virginia, Mountain Mama, and take me home, country road. I hear Country roads, take me home to the place I belong. West Virginia, mountain mama, take me home. Country roads, take me home to the place I belong. West Virginia, mountain mama, and take me home. Country roads. All right, so we'd like to invite you to Indian Grill, which is at the Roadway Inn on 309. Sorry, I don't know directions, but we didn't want to have a huge banquet, but this place is typically pretty empty, and there's a lot of seating, and it's kind of like you order and then sit down. So it should be kind of just low key. Feel free if you're hungry. They make paper dosas, so it's kind of it's a good place. Oh yeah, if you haven't signed the guest book, if you could please sign the guest book. I think, can you sign the guest book? Absolutely. Actually, sorry, how old are you? 10. Really sorry, the age limit's 11, so yeah, you gotta see your ID. But yeah, please join us informally at Indian Grill and hang out. We have, yeah, thank you again for coming. Thank you for driving, and really meant a lot. And yeah, that's it. Directions to the, it's on 309. If you Google Roadway Inn, it's actually basically in the Roadway Inn. What's that? Near the Knapp Road? I don't think so. Hold on. Roadway.
Where did they go? There they go. Hello, there you go.
I can sign the guest book.
Yeah, we will make our way over there, but we probably won't realistically get there till 12:15ish. But if you search for Roadway Inn Conference Center, that's where the Indian Grill is.
So like, yeah, okay. Yeah.
Gives him a place to sit. I don't. It takes every next part out. Oh, I love it. Thank you.
I think, yeah, no, like, part of me is like, with this transition, I feel like actually create a lot of stuff really quick. That's all.
Dad, do you want a banana sticker?
Sure. It's been a reaction against really struck by a flyer out there. Yeah, we were
No, I was like, was that just recently? Who are you asking? I feel like you're a good mom to like love homes and get in there.
Yeah.
You give that to like lots of empathy and like make it a non-traumatic experience. That's totally like,
It's been a long time. Julie, thank you so much for coming. That's the only one I know.
Well, like, I didn't check the phone and said, she gotta go. Should we expect? Oh.
Beaver Creek, Ohio. Oh, no. Well, she also, I've also known her since like year 7th grade. And now we started.
oh, you look like a grandpa. People will be like, like that's
Yeah,
the thought process.
most of them, for my time when it wasn't.
We got those together. But and I said it before. That time we spent first time, I guess enough time. I think that was behind Jim, guys. Jim's, yeah, that had the flowers like in his backyard. He is 3 months, I think, like 3.5. He kept trying to find it. They think you can. Instagram. Yeah.
Even there, there's no one of his stores around here.
Yeah. Sorry, that's rude. It's fine. Not bad. People are driving those giant trains that are going to half an hour when the sun goes down. I guess we're a couple now. Okay, we're a couple. Luckily, there's enough room, and I got the live stream. But I am live streaming. But yeah, we'll go to the show. Well, we go to Black Snow.
Yeah, I was there. I don't think I had a background.
White dog? Oh, so that's every year. It's like upscale bar food or something.
Oh, yeah.
It was never like this. It was always decent, but never like this. And we got like their second rate, not the most expensive. Yeah. Oh, and now right outside of the building, they have there's a little kiosk food stand that right now is a caviar bar.
Are you serious?
Yeah. I know we don't need to know. We got, we're not really sick, but we got gift cards from a charity auction, right? And it was like $100 gift card, which meant that our meal was only next week.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I don't. My sister is a cello, and there's been a couple of cello representations. They were 9 this year.
Oh, yeah.
9 to 3, right? But then 90 by no.
Maybe it is.
No, it's you know, like 7 violin. The number of violins and cello. Yeah. So it's yeah, it's cello. Yeah. We went there like super year before they were like a
Impossible to get into.
No one might get up.
Yeah.
You said it's 11 a.m.
We could do like 11 a.m. now. So like you guys are already packed and ready to go with your order information.
Yeah.
When I supposedly, if you don't show up a little before 5, 3 people up in front of you.
Beaver Creek, she just nailed it.
They're fun when they're like,
Yeah.
like, oh, shit.